Live. Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to MSP Initiative Live here on Tuesday, July 19th, 2022. Almost skipped 2 years there. Thought it was 2020 again. I am live here actually in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So this is not a Zoom background. This is actually a real window with a real city behind me. No special effects here. We'll get into some quick housekeeping. I'll introduce our guest today, and we'll see where we go. So real quick, just for everyone on the video side, mspinitiative.com, sharing my screen. This session and every other session is available under sessions in both podcast and video format. So feel free to peruse, plenty of good content there, and obviously do this Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time every week. Stay tuned for giveaways. I think we're finally getting, I know I've been saying this for a little bit, finally getting close to firing up some giveaways from our vendor sponsors. We're going to be launching 3 community block party pages. You'll find them here shortly. We'll obviously make a little bit of fanfare around them under community block parties. Yes, they are real. Yes, they are planned. Yes, they are coming. So looking forward to those. Lastly, Channel Strong Tour. We just finished the second half of the Northeast. So a few weeks ago, we finished like kind of the first part of the Northeast. And then last week, we finished the second part of the Northeast, which was great. I enjoyed seeing people out and about. And, you know, I think we're on track to, you know, hit like 12 to 1,400 people across all of the Channel Strong tours this year, if all things keep on track. So super exciting. Just to give you an idea of where we're going for the end of the year. So we're done to weeks 1 through 5 already in the book. Weeks 6, 7, and 8 coming up. So week 6, Denver, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, St. Louis. Week 7, Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, Irvine. Week 8, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta. So if you're in any one of these areas in these times and you're an MSP, come out and join us because they're good time, good conversation, learn a few things too, which are always a good time. So now all my housekeeping is done. I would like to welcome to the show Owen. Owen is from a company called SweetProcess. I'm going to let Owen introduce himself, give him a little bit of background on himself and the company, and then we're going to get into education mode a little bit today. We're going to learn a few things. Over to you, Owen.
Great. So thanks for having me. My name is Owen Mcgab Enaohwo, and the CEO and co-founder of a company called SweetProcess. Basically, it's a software that enables you and your employees to basically collaborate together to document and also improve standard operating procedures that you document on how you guys do work internally and how you do provide service for your clients. Because as you know, as MSPs, you have different clients with different needs, so you do need to have documentation in place on how you do their work for them. So that's primarily what the app does, is that one single source of truth where you can find all these documents. And on top of that, you can actually assign tasks to your employees based on what you've documented. So your employee can never say, I don't know how to do the work, because in order to assign a task, there needs to be an underlying procedure on which that task is based on, so that as they're doing the work, they're seeing the instructions right there. So regarding some backstory on how I got started, is that the next thing you want me to do? Or
yes, please. Okay. Tell us about your journey.
Okay, great. So SweetProcess started in 2013, the fourth quarter of 2013. And before I got started, I was providing, I had another company where I was providing entrepreneurs in the US with back office support, like basically staff that will work for them from the Philippines. And this was a time when a lot of people had read, the 4-hour work week, the world is flat. And this book opens their mind to the fact that, they could actually hire staff abroad. Because at that time, a lot of people, when they thought about that, they thought about it like from the standpoint that was mostly for the big telecoms and the big companies, where they would go and hire like hundreds of seats or whatever in like Philippines and all the other countries and India and stuff like that. But this book opened them to the mind that, to the mindset that, even the small business owner could actually do that. But then when they would come to us with the preconceived notion that, they would just hit the ground running like that, and magically, they would have the person who's in a different culture and different time zone and it's not physically right there with them, take over the work and start doing the work. So one of the things we had to do was, as part of the onboarding, was training all the customers that, hey, there is a process where we have to sit down with you for each recurring task that you want to hand over to us. Someone on my team will actually record a training session with you so that we can behind the scenes take that training. And we did this through Skype. Zoom was not a thing then. And we will take that training session and go behind the scenes and document a procedure on how the work was done. But one of the issues we had on our end was that the actual documenting of the procedures and checklists for how the task was done, it was either we were using hard to use enterprise level tools, or we were hacking about a bunch of different tools that were not necessarily meant for that very purpose. And so I was like, in my mind, I was like, you know what, I have to find a better solution. So fast forward, I was invited as a guest on another podcast called Mixergy. It was hosted by this fellow named Andrew Warner. And he brought me on there to teach how entrepreneurs can basically document procedures, kind of the things I will be teaching today. And my co-founder all the way from Australia, who is a programmer and the CTO of SweetProcess right now, was on that call, liked what I was teaching and how entrepreneurs could do document procedures and stuff for their businesses, and reached out to me by email and said, hey, he has this idea he's working on. He just want to share some ideas with me and just see if what's he working on makes sense. And I was open to the call. We got on a conversation, and lo and behold, he was trying to build a software that would make it easy for people to document procedures and collaborate together. And I was like, dude, not only will I give you, my feedback on how to do this, but are you interested in working on this together? Because this is an issue that I'm currently facing right now. And I thought I would build it myself, but I didn't have time. But since you have the technical chops, let's go ahead and do this. But one thing I want you to do first is wait, instead of, developers are so excited to jump around to just start building stuff because they got the skills, right? But I said, instead of doing that, we would end up with a situation where the software ends up being as hard as the different software we're already using that we didn't even like for this very purpose. So what I want to do is spend some time, have some conversations with a bunch of people, potential customers and companies, to see if what specific problems they were having from the standpoint of documenting procedures, what was keeping them from actually having that one single place, what was the issues they were facing with it, so that we can get to understand the root problems and then build a solution that solves kind of the root problem, as opposed to just jumping there and building features. So we did almost 30 to 40 different calls with companies from people from different companies, had this conversation, and then we analyzed all the different things that they were telling us, and then we're able to now start building the software based on that. And so from the learnings from that, we built the software, and fast forward to now, we have over 1,600 companies using SweetProcess, and a typical company can run from 20 employees all the way to maybe even 100, even sometimes 1,000 employees. We have government agencies using SweetProcess. We have churches using SweetProcess, banks, lawyers. Lo and behold, a lot of MSPs are using SweetProcess. I mean, it runs the gamut, because at the end of the day, all these companies, regardless of the vertical, they need to, or the industry, they need to have procedures in place on how they do their work, especially for those things that you cannot automate, that human beings have to do. You need to have these things to ensure the results that you want from the people who will be doing the work, your employees.
Sure. Now, I mean, I don't know how much you know about MSP IT land. I call it the sandbox. It's my jam. That's what I call it. I mean, there's a couple popular packages that popped up from some of the larger names in the space. I don't know if you've heard of an IT Glue, or you've heard of a IT Boost. There's obviously Confluence, which is a Jira product. There's obviously Hoodoo is another one that's popped up. So there's a lot of ones outside of the kind of PSA or ERP style system, right, that people are doing ticketing in and stuff like that. So, I mean, generally speaking, a lot of MSPs, even when they have the tools to go and buy one, subscribe to one of these platforms, they just don't spend the time, because they're just in.
So, George, for some reason, I cannot hear you.
Lost your audio, George.
Yes. Dog, you can hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Okay, that was weird. So some of the larger companies hire a document writer, right? Where basically, they have somebody that's literally their job is to, all day long, figure out what the process is, interview people within the company, and then basically create some of the stuff you're about to talk about, right? But the people who don't have that dedicated person that's literally, not just writing internal documentation, but also customer facing documentation, a lot of the times these guys just don't have, or either allocate the time, make the time, have the time to actually go through the process and screenshot things and go through the steps. And obviously this is a scaling thing, right? Where people, just don't have, they get to a glass ceiling and they can't get past it a certain point. So, not trying to take your thunder, but like, just want to make sure like I'm painting the picture, right? Because largely the people that we, interact with on a day-to-day basis, right? They're doing technology projects, they're doing tech support, they're doing onboardings and implementations. And, like a lot of that knowledge, and then the big scare, in the sandbox is, that knowledge, kind of leaves with the person, right? Rather than stays with the organization. So, so there you go. I'm painting a little bit of a picture for you.
Yeah, and on top of that is, even in your case, like a lot of the customers that we deal with internally, they're mostly documenting this for their own use internally so that they can produce whatever output they want for the customer. But in your case, not only do you need to have that for how you guys do work internally, your service is working on behalf of the clients in their, providing them IT support and all that stuff. So you need to also have additional documentation for how you do the work for the client that they experience on their end. So it's even more critical in terms of documentation, the need for it for MSPs, I would say, and so if you want, I could share with you kind of a framework on which how people can actually do this on their own.
Let's hear your magic tips. Let's hear it.
Okay, so first of all, the first thing is before you even start any kind of documentation, I want you to go through a whole evaluation of what you guys do on quite often, and then determine which ones should you get rid of first in the first place. Because we have this whole thing of like tribal knowledge of this is how we've always done stuff. And if you go with that whole mindset and then start documenting stuff without doing the first step of eliminating what you don't even need to document in the first place, then you just bring in garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So let's get rid of what we don't need, and we are left with what we think that we do need. And then you're going to ask yourself, what are these recurring tasks that we do need, and then also which ones are revenue generating versus which one they're not so directly like to sales and marketing and bringing the customers, but they probably are more on the production side of things. A lot of times people get excited and they want to start documenting the revenue generating things, and I tell them pause on that first, because if you document that and you're successful with that, the next thing you're going to do is, okay, let me bring in some more salespeople, more marketing people, let's get more business or more customers in. But if on this other hand, you have these bottlenecks that you've not solved, you're going to have more customers be pissed at the situation of the bottlenecks that you've not solved. So why don't we start on this other end first, right? And so you determine what is the first, the biggest bottleneck of your time, or the time of your manager. And the way to determine that is like, hey, what is that one thing that people keep asking over and over again? And I'm just wishing, I wish I had an answer for this. Or they ask me and I have to pause everything I'm doing just to, solve that, nightmare.
Can we make the first one restart your computer?
Restart your computer, I guess, if it's that a nightmare in the MSP world. But my point is, the biggest task that people keep asking over and over again, and so you start with that one, identify that as a bottleneck. Okay, let's start with that. And so the next thing you need to do is install in the mindset of your employees, your managers, the employees on the ground, that hey, this is going to be a thing where it's going to be continuous improvement. And why am I saying this, that this needs to be done from the very beginning, is that they don't have to expect that this will be perfect from day one. And by installing that mindset, they understand that we're going to start from version 0, version 1.0, whatever, and it's going to be a continuous improvement thing. And as we go, we'll keep iterating and improving it from there. So if that's done, the next time you're working on that task, because people will ask, when is the best time to actually document the first bottleneck you've identified? I would say the next time you're working on a task, because while you're working on a task, you're going to do some work to kind of remember how the task is done and so on and so forth. So I think that's the best time to actually start documenting that very task. And so what do you put in the document? Don't worry about making the document elaborate with so much information. Just start by creating what I call a minimum viable procedure, which is just a fancy way of saying a skeleton outline that has title of the procedure, title of each of the steps. So if you're working on a 10-step task that you do on a recurring basis, and you're doing it today, and maybe you do it every 3 months, and today is the third month you're about to do it, start working on documenting it. By the time you're done, you have that minimum viable procedure that has title of the procedure and title of each of the 10 steps. Now, how do you go from that to more details filled in? So next time your employee or your manager is working on a task, they need to have that document right there in front of them so that as they're working on a task, their role is just to add in some more information into each of the steps. It could be text, it could be screenshots, it could be a video, but the caveat with video is we don't want to create a movie and add it to a step. No, we want short bite-sized videos that are relevant to that step. But the reality is when they're doing the work next time, like you started it, when they're doing their work, they do the same thing and they just start adding some more details. But at the same time, you are monitoring what they're doing or keeping an eye on this document so that as they make improvements to it, you can look and see, okay, this makes more sense. And then as employees on the ground start doing the work, and they have this document right there in front of them, they're going to come across certain things that was not encountered for in the document when it was created. So that should be like a trigger that lets you know, okay, in step number 5, my employee on the ground is running into a situation where we didn't encounter for that. That's now a trigger to come back to that document and update that step to encounter for that very step that was not covered. Or it could be a thing where they found something new altogether and you can just literally get rid of a bunch of more steps, right? Because all the 10 steps is not necessary. Again, there's this new technology that make things down to like 5 steps. So it becomes a thing as they're using the document, as they're working on tasks, the documents must always be there in front of them, because a lot of times the insight that comes from the improvement of document doesn't come in the period when you're all working to build a document. It comes when the people are on the ground doing the work. And so there needs to be a way where that information is passed back as they're doing the work, and then you can build the underlying document. But following that strategy, you start looking for the next biggest bottleneck of tasks, and you follow that down over and over again. Eventually get to a point where for a large extent you've documented a lot of the big bottlenecks tasks that are not necessarily income generating. Then you can start facing these income generating ones like the marketing and sales thing, and do the same thing. And eventually you're able to now find employees, even more employees, to come in and do most of those tasks. And so now you have documents in place. Okay, so the other thing that people might wonder is, okay, I get the concept of how to do this, but how do I make sure that people document things in a way I want, right? So another thing you could do is you could even have a procedure of how you create procedures. And it could be just a document that's, okay, when you're creating a procedure, this is how I want you to name the document. When you're entering the steps, this is how I want you to enter the steps. When you are entering details, this is how, so that when they are doing their, creating their own document or improving one you've created, they have that guide in front of them that is kind of like, the procedure of how I create procedures, right? Now, another thing that people might run into might be, okay, maybe I don't have enough time, or maybe my employees don't have enough time. What do I do? Now, yes, another cheat code is that there are people called process consultants. Literally, that's what they're hired to do. They come into companies, evaluate your process, kind of do what I've kind of discussed already, but now they are in control of the whole thing, and then look into your processes and determine, okay, which ones to get rid of, which ones to help you document, and they will go through this whole system and help you document the different parts of your business. So with all these things in front of you, you have a means to actually get started and not say, okay, I cannot do it. Yeah.
I wonder how much the going rate is for a process consultant.
Well, I would tell you it is expensive because obviously, you're bringing a third party in to come in and do work for you. Like we have a process consultant that works, basically she's a referral partner of SweetProcess, and she works with banks, so on and so forth. I think one of the projects she did not too long ago was for a HVAC company that was trying to kind of franchise themselves. And so she was able to come in there, build out all the procedures and processes using SweetProcess, and now dude is out there basically trying to get more franchisees into his business. Because another benefit of having documents in place, especially for people in MSPs, we know that there are a lot of private equity companies buying MSPs, right? So if you come into the gate and someone is reaching out to you, say they're interested in your company, and they know they are getting a company that for the large extent is kind of everything is already documented. It's like a business that runs on its own for the large extent. So they know that, okay, when they buy the company, I don't need to have George remain in the company. I don't need to have, because everything is already all documented. So that's another need on that point where people decide, okay, I want to go ahead and do this because it increases the value of the company itself.
I'm sure there's, I mean, listen, there's been a little bit of talk about actually doing the work of documenting, standard operating procedures. Obviously, in MSP land, we've been talking this for some time. I'm going to pick on a couple people here and just pick your brain. Keith Nelson, how much of your business is in a standard operating procedure or absolutely documented? If you were to give me a percentage, I'm sure it's not 100.
Good question. As a standard, our business is pretty non-standard. And when we do, custom development and 45%. I mean, just this morning, we dealt with 5 or 6 issues on the docks where they wanted to change the way tickets look and hour tracking. And so going there's we did the changes and got the workers off to work, and now someone has to go back and document everything we just did, and there's a delay in that.
I was mentioning to Owen before you came on that in IT land we're so busy to put the cape on and go and fix a problem that you go to ask, hey, how'd you fix that problem? They're like, I don't even know. I just somehow figured it out, and it's like, well, what was the answer? Yeah, I'm like, I don't remember, and then all of a sudden, you lose it, right? And so. I think, we could go around a little bit in a circle, but you almost need to build this into the fabric of how you do your business, right? Pete, I know you've been around for some time and in and out of IT land on several fronts. What's your position on this documentation and standard operating procedure? I mean, I'm sure you're very poignant on this one.
I'm very opinionated on this one. The more highly documented a company, the more efficient and repeatable they can do, as well as drive client and customer support and improving customer support, because you can hand that documentation off to anybody on your team and do it. So I think, process, procedures, and standards, help you optimize your workforce much better. And people like it too. They like being able to have a quick reference point instead of having to muddle through something. Techs love to brute force their time through, but in the end, the pressure is on them to achieve tasks within a certain time limit. And if they don't, then the pressure gets on them. So this is just a tool that the employer can provide to its employees to say, I'm giving you the tools. You have the tools. Use them and get better.
By the way, Pete brings up something interesting because it just occurred for those of us that work hard. Someone called me tech called me just the other day and said, how do you do this? And I go, I don't know. He goes, you do it all the time. I go, yeah, but for me to explain it to you, I literally had to log onto the server and go copy this as I do it. Because for me to describe it, if I were to tell you the steps, I probably would have missed 3 or 4 of them. I guess it's muscle memory. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, where's that? I go, it's under a tab under this. I go, let me show you. I don't remember the names, but as soon as I see the screen, it's very visual. So incorporating that visual, I mean, one of the things that'd be really nice is just have video in that, where we used to do that there was an IBM product long ago where you do screen videos of procedures. And, that would be the secret sauce to me.
Well, it certainly adds to it. Video, screenshots, anything you can add to your documentation to make it easier. We have a SaaS product and we don't have any written help in it. It's all video. So when you click the help button, it pops up a video with screenshots that you can pause as you go step by step and see it visually in front of you. There's one other key point, though, that I want to make about documentation is managing people. It's very hard to manage multiple technical personalities or even administrative type people, business operations type people, right? Everybody has a different opinion, but if there's a process and somebody skips a step in the process and it goes awry, now you can have that conversation. What made you do that? Why? And it lets you see if there's a step missing. Does it need to be modified, or is the person just trying to cut corners to get it done in a time frame? So it's a very easy tool to use in management of performance of your employees above and beyond, giving them a tool set. So,
I feel like, and everything you said is valid. Problem is, I feel like documentation, I don't know if it takes another 10%, 20%, 25% of time. And if you're in a compressed group that doesn't have the manpower necessary to slow down and work on things, right? They're just pedals down on the floor because, they're just limited on resources. There's more water coming down the pipe than they can handle. The documentation system stays empty. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, short of hiring a consultant, which Owen mentioned earlier, or if you're large enough, hiring somebody who's, part of their actual job is this. How do you get people that aren't in those roles to actually contribute towards this process? Because otherwise, it's kind of a bubblegum approach, right? A little bit here, a little bit there. It's out of date. Nobody went back. Nobody updated. It's stale. And then you end up having to start all over again.
So one of the things we discovered during the research we did, like I said, because we didn't want to just build the software, we had to talk to people, was that was one of the issues, is that they were worried that they would spend all this time creating this document and then it becomes stale. So what's the solution to that? The document, the same tool that you use to document how work is done should also be married with the actual doing of the work. Because as the people are doing the work, they're looking at the documents, because, like in SweetProcess, you can't do that. You can assign a task without having the underlying document that the task is based off from. So they get to a point where, there's something that is not clear. They don't have to be this proactive employee to go into a different place to go remember to tell somebody that, oh, something's off. Just with the click of a button, they can go in there and just let the manager know, hey, step number 5, something is off. It's not clear. I think maybe we need to do something. Manager gets notified in real time, goes to that very step, and then, oh, that's correct. We didn't account for this earlier. Goes ahead to improve that very step because it's holding off real work from getting done. It goes ahead to improve that step, approve the document. Now the underlying procedure is updated. The task itself that they were working on now has that reflection of the task. So that's why, a tool like this to really solve this problem needs to be married with both the documentation and the task, because like I said, a lot of the insight of improvement comes not from the documentation initially, but comes from the way the work is being done. And so that's how, you have that frequent movement of improvements into the document. The document keeps being improved upon. The other thing too that was important that I don't know who mentioned it, was it Pete, about we learned about the need for people to have styles of learning, in terms of some people learn by reading, some people learn by watching videos, some people learn by doing stuff, right? So it's a platform that is all about documenting how work is done. You can't know who your employee is from the onset or what style of learning. So the software has to cater for all styles of learning. So when you're documenting stuff, it should allow you to be able to put in text, put in screenshots, put in videos, as much as you need. And even, like I said, married to the doing of the work, because now some people like to learn by doing. And so that it all comes together. Yeah. So having the right tool itself, it's actually a key for making this work.
I got it. Yeah. I mean, I wonder, if anyone has anything they've done to incentivize their techs or their people who are on the front lines to actually contribute, because I feel like I've talked to hundreds of MSPs about this topic, and I've heard a lot of different permutations, but a lot of it turns into, hey, we got them started, and then they fell off after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and then nobody ever went back and actually got them back on track, right?
So there is a part of where you have to, because you're introducing something new into the culture that maybe is not there already. So one of the things I found a lot of people do is whenever a question comes out to them, to like the manager or to this owner of the company, the answer is always, have you checked, in this case, SweetProcess? And if the answer is no, it's like, okay, well, that's your starting point, right? And so the reality is that over time, you begin to train your employees that if I have a question about something about to work on, there needs to be that, I need to go to this one place first, because my manager is not going to answer me because I've not checked there. And then they go check it and come back to you and say, hey, I did check it. You can see, because you can see the log of what I did. It's not literally there. That prompts the manager now, this is an outstanding task that this very document does not even exist. That becomes a
Pete,
thing for them
Pete,
to go ahead.
Pete, how many times has somebody come to you and said, I couldn't find it in the system, and then you found it?
Yeah, it is. And you've got to put it in something that's like searchable. So,
Universal
like we
search.
used to put it either in an internal intranet type thing or SharePoint where you could search for keywords and make them. But we also had universal naming conventions that we did. And just like you, George, you have somebody that does your internal FAQs. There is a control and change process that goes into place. And what we used to call was a thing called HERO: hassle, elimination, remediation, and outcome. And whoever got the HERO points for the month got a bonus. So they were incentivized on the HERO program to make updates to the documentation and use the feedback form that was part of HERO. So those changes could be done, and then the documentation person would actually clean them up, because texts, are not the best grammatically or any
I'm
of that.
horrible at it.
So, we would use HERO, and HERO would work very well for us.
Interesting. Well, it's I think it just comes down to, like, if you're going to be serious about it, yes, you got to have the right system that you're going to use. But like we said earlier, somebody has to keep it maybe not the top of mind, but close to the top, because I can't tell you how many times, and we all think IT, right? It's being consumerized. It's the same fix every time. Just go to Google. Google's my documentation system. Oof. That works for a second, and then when the hard stuff comes, you're not going to find it on Google or in forums or in other places. Actually, some of that's been monetized, right? Like, you get some of the forums, you're like, oh, you want to see the answer? Just pay here, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Very, very interesting. I mean, so standard operating procedures. I know in the sales side, they like to call them run books, right? Which are kind of like, hey, here's how to position things. Here's how to quote things. Here's the steps that I need you to take, the questions that need answered in order to come out with the outcome. So, like, I feel like every position has kind of like, maybe it doesn't need to be as thick of as a Bible, but it definitely is like, hey, here are the top 4 or 5 things that you need to understand on how to do your job properly. And I feel like that's where, and I know I'm crossing over into another lane right now, but like, that's where when you onboard new employees, things usually go off the rails. I'm not going to go out here with the flag and tell you that I fixed this problem. I'm the opposite. I'm the person that's part of the problem. I think Pete will tell you that, right, Pete?
I would never say anything to that, George.
Right.
I plead the fifth on that one.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take that as a head nod. Keith, and feel free, right? And we'll poke on some of these other people that are live here. But Keith, I don't know how often you're bringing new people into the organization, but I feel like the people that are newest to the team are the people that would benefit from the documentation the most if it's there, right?
Yeah, it's our stuff's so proprietary that I have a balance between.
It's stuck in your head, Keith. What happens if the bus to the airport goes down? What's going to happen?
Yeah, no, it's a matter of, I really have to pick and choose what I want them to bring me in on versus what I want them to take the initiative to go do.
Okay. Fair.
I mean, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9:30 in the morning, it's call Keith or Brian, because that's the middle of dispatch. And, I don't want the call from DC that one of your guys is fixing printers and we're not sending longshoremen out to the docks. So, but I do have a lot of procedures documented on how they do maintenance, support, and their service calls. Okay. I mean, that is very structured because you have to run a tight ship. But some of it I like to restrain them. It's like, your answer between these hours is, here's the 2 phone numbers you call.
After these hours, don't call. Go here.
Yeah.
I got it.
After these hours, I'm out with George having cigars.
Hey, There's nothing wrong with that. We'll have some cigars ready for you next time I see it. Tim, I'm gonna pick on you, buddy. How's sunny San Diego?
Sunny San Diego is absolutely awesome. What can I say? It's about 76 degrees, getting a little bit warmer. It's hard to beat.
I sometimes wonder how you're concentrated all day in the office. With it.
You mean the surfboard or the? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The surfboard.
Yeah. No, it's hard to beat. It's a nice climate. Too expensive, but nice climate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting on documentation because we're helping clients with CMMC process right now, and for us, documentation not been that much of an issue because we have extremely low rotation. I think there's just 7 of us, and I think the person who's been here the least has been here for 9 years. So we're running a really kind of a tight group.
Somebody needs the book from Tim on how to keep people.
Yeah. I don't know. It's nothing to do with me. It's kind of a mistake. Probably have nowhere else to go. But yeah, I mean, the documentation is tough, and we have clients that need documentation for all sorts of different reasons. And we assist them with that, and we have a lot of experience again prepping people for CMMC and other things. But it's tough. I mean, we have some documentation internally, but as you mentioned before, it's really hard to keep stuff up to date, and especially people's brains right now are pretty much our documentation system. That sounds horrible to say, but it's reality.
Yeah, I just I feel like if everybody had an extra, and I know parallel universe here. Today was an hour longer, right? And your people had breathing time in between the tasks that they do, right? Let's call it 5 minutes in between every task that they do. They probably could document really well. The problem is that it's usually a machine gun operation, right? Things are coming in so fast and you're oh, got to turn around and work on the next thing. And at the end of the day, when somebody asks you, hey, what did you do? And it's it's in the system, I guess. I couldn't tell you. I'm burnt out. I can't think about what I had for breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally true. And I mean, you can go back to your ticketing system and, sort things out from there and what have you. But, when you have a tech who's been in the business for 29 or 30 years and something comes up and it's 2 keystrokes, okay, done, boom, on to the next one. You can always go back to the tickets, but there are things you really can't document. This is going to sound horrible as well, may not be worth documenting because the effort to document is something that just comes up once every X, 2 or 3 years, and something with specific clients that are affected by Internet Explorer going away, et cetera, et cetera. It's just it's too much effort, and you're trying to, handle 60, 70, 80, 90 support tickets plus maintenance with a staff of 7. I don't know. It's sometimes just, I don't want to say give up on documentation, but document the important stuff, and the rest of it sort of has a tendency to go by the wayside, which is a horrible way to run a business.
And I feel like I've not really run into a ticketing system, and I could be wrong, that's really great for you to be able to search what was actually done, right? If you were hey, I want to pull up any ticket that was in reference to this fix, it takes a lot of effort to actually get to the data that you're looking for in order to be able to extract what you need out of it, right? So I don't know. I feel I don't know if the systems were intentionally hard to search and built and designed that way, or they were hey, this isn't really going to be a worry, and nobody's going to go back and actually look for any more than what's in the title of a ticket.
Yeah, but
I think, George, you're bringing up an industry issue is the documentation was always separate from the ticketing systems.
Exactly.
The ticketing companies all made cheap attempts to become documenters.
Yeah, it's an add-on.
With an add-on that they just kind of all introduced and gave up on. And it never was worth. I think they'd all admit it. I don't think that's talking out of school. And it really wasn't worth investing in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was everyone had the same idea. No one executed it. And by the way, in San Diego, if you're near Humphreys, I'm going to launch my boat there.
We're 15 minutes from anywhere. So Humphreys, unless there's horrible traffic in the morning, is 18 minutes from the office. So we're good.
Well, there you go. I may have made two friends that didn't even really know about each other. Tim, I'm sure you like cigars, right?
Oh, absolutely not. I stopped smoking 29 years ago, so no, I'm not
All
a
right.
cigar guy.
He's not a cigar guy, Keith. Sorry, buddy, but he might help you with your boat.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Very good. Just gonna flip around, Owen, any last thoughts? And then guys, you have any questions that, you think Owen can answer while we got him on the line? And then we'll just touch on a few kind of recent events, and then we'll see where we go. Owen, any last thoughts on your side?
Okay, so I mean, it's very important. Like one of the things that Keith said was like, a lot of these tools, they add this thing as add-ons. So you need to, if it's critical for you to solve the problem of documenting, you need to find a tool that from the very onset was built with that intention in mind. Because for the most part, if that was the case, then they would have had come across a lot of these different issues we're talking about, from being able to search things, how easy it is for people to use the software, how easy for people to improve the document based on them doing work. So find the right tool is the first thing. And then another thing too is, there's a bunch of different tools out there. If you found a couple of them, what I'll tell you to do is, including SweetProcess, put them on the thing where you're doing a trial, trying all the different software at the same time, trying to see, what's the experience of the managers, what's the experience of the owners of the company, what's the experience of the employees on the ground, all trying out the softwares that you are testing at the same time, and then choose the one that works for all parties involved, because you just want to choose the one that works only for the owner of the company or the managers. Everybody needs to feel like this is a tool from a documentation standpoint that is for us. So that's kind of the message I'm going to leave, is to run that kind of test.
Got it. Perfect. So we're gonna get a special. You know what? Why don't you go and put your special thing out now, so
Okay,
that way we
great.
don't catch you on the
Great.
line. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did offer that. I mean, I've shared with you the strategy on how to get started, but sometimes people want to see something. So we have 52 standard operating procedure templates that you can get access to, and to go get access to the templates, all you have to do is go to sweetprocess.com/MSP Initiative. So that's sweet like candy, process like process.com/MSP Initiative. Yeah.
Awesome. There's that might be some good stuff in there for everybody to follow. So let's get on to the current events, and you can hang around, Owen, if you want.
Of course.
Real quick. I don't know. I don't know if everybody got this in their inbox this morning. I would think yes. I hate to keep coming back to this topic, but if you've read this article, this goes into a lot around the communication between, Fred from Kaseya and the internal employees at Datto. And in a nutshell, he comes out and says, hey, listen, this is business, right? This is how it's going to work. If you don't like it, I think he mentions, somebody put in here, oh, there's a tissue box outside if you don't like it. I don't know. I don't know if I find value in this article other than, somebody came out here and was salty and just wanted to continue the noise. Comes out here, and I guess he wasn't fond of Austin's comments that came out, the original founder of Datto. Just felt like he slowed the process down rather than speeded it up. And actually didn't even get to the end of this before I got onto today's show. So I don't know. I mean, listen, we know who Fred is. There's nothing, I don't learn anything new from this article about Fred and how he does business. I mean, it is what it is. We knew that, one company operates differently from the others. I don't know why we're surprised by this article. I don't know why it was worth putting it out there like this, other than obviously they have some, sources and some comments right in here. So, no surprise, I think. That's just my opinion. It is what it is. This is how business works. One company comes in, the other company gets acquired. That company's going to set the agenda. Oh boy. I mean, as far as who stays and who goes, right? Like, what, if a bunch of people leave Datto internally, they're going to backfill them, is what it sounds like. And there's plenty of people out there looking for jobs. Anybody have a chance to read this article that came out today?
A little bit, and my response is I would never said anything. And too many people think too highly of the founder of data, even high ranking, it's not someone you're going to go to war with and win. Sometimes it's better to left things unsaid than to confirm what he said. And I think that's what he did. I think that both articles, the one that came out immediately refuting, which I think both of them were unnecessary. And
I agree.
To me, it makes me more nervous. If you were trying to do damage control, you made it worse. That's
I mean, these two articles were like the one that they came out directly after Austin came out. That was damage control. This article here is far from damage control. It's stirred up again, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think anything was really damage controlling, in my opinion.
Yeah. Listen, benefits are going to change. Of course, they're going to change. Process is going to change. We're just talking about process today. Of course, it's going to change. The culture of the company. They're putting new managers in place. They're the people that are going to set the culture of the company. So, yeah, it's going to change. You know, there are some comments in here about, hey, there's like groups, you know, that they put together, you know, like internal kind of things in order to help people who are part of, you know, different, you know, cultural groups, stuff like that. And like, that's great that was in place at Data before. Like, but that's not necessarily in the core of how the business runs, right? Like, there's still a product. There's still development of the product. There's still support of the product, you know, and they're a product company. I mean, that's what they are. So I don't know. I just felt like
you shouldn't have come out and said things aren't going to change when anyone with a quarter brain knew that there had to be an alignment of benefits and so on.
100% agree. Like, why they said nothing was going to change. I don't think anybody would have said, oh yeah, I totally am on board with that. That's when does that ever happen? I'm not really been experienced many acquisitions or mergers like this where everything stays exactly the same. I would love for somebody to point it out to me.
Yeah. And I think that's what the problem was, is there was changes that were expected that would happen in any merger, that the way they came out so robust, they made themselves less than honest.
Yeah, I think
not realizing that their reputation is people are waiting for you to lie. And so you're amplifying stuff that's, you know, you're throwing gasoline on the fire.
I appreciate that people are internally probably aren't happy. I think we've heard it. Plenty of people externally are not happy. They've said their piece, I'm sure, everywhere they can. This is what was coming. That's it. That's all I got for you. I just don't think, like, I appreciate the fact that somebody felt, you know, that they needed to write this article over at CRN. I don't know what they thought was going to come from this article. I don't know. Like, the change that's going to happen is happening. That's it. I hate to be blunt about it, but, you know, the deal's done. They're in the driver's seat. What was this article going to do? Maybe, I guess, convince some people to leave faster if they're already leaving. I don't know. It just doesn't, it's not beneficial to anybody. That's just my 2 cents. Moving along, guess what? Microsoft Inspire apparently is happening this week, right now, as we speak. So obviously continuing to push Azure and Azure migration incentives, right? They want everybody to get into the cloud as fast as possible. First go at some sort of contact center solution sitting on top of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So those are like the big, you know, kind of bullet points from today. I think it's a couple days. But basically they're really pushing people to get off these older versions, right? So people are on Server 2012, SQL Server 2012, you know, basically R2s, et cetera. Hey, you know, Microsoft hasn't stopped putting out end of life, you know, kind of, so you need to pay attention to your server versions. Big push still for desktops going into the cloud. I guess that's no surprise after they launched Cloud PC a little bit ago. So that's continuing to push on. And then they keep on putting new features into Teams. So between Teams, Cloud PC, and Azure migrations, those are the kind of big topics of the day. And then this contact center solution that sits on top of Microsoft Dynamics CRM, which, you know, I guess they're just kind of plugging a couple of products together. And then, the other thing that came out was this Windows 365, which is like the cloud version of Microsoft Windows. Microsoft's really come out and said that they want to start launching operating systems now every 36 months rather than every 10 years, right? Like Windows 7, and then like that was 10 years. Windows 10 is coming up, I believe, in 2025. They want to get out of the 10-year operating system support, which I think could be problematic for certain environments that have to be regulated, but they want to do operating systems every 36 months, saying, hey, just like Microsoft Office features are going to constantly be coming out, you're just going to get them. Keith, I think you're in a prime position to talk about this. Like from an application development standpoint, things change, right? And like you have to constantly react to, these kind of things coming downstream, right? Like software that's being written doesn't automatically work on all the newer versions of things. So how does that play in your world? Do you think 36-month operating system turnovers, is that a little aggressive?
Not in today's market. First of all, people like to bash Microsoft, which is a fun hobby on some of the things they do. But if you're part of their partner program as a developer, an ISV, and you participate, they give you resources that would cost a lot of money. They provide you guidance. In fact, we're doing a seminar in about an hour or a webinar with them where they're talking about some of the new reporting capabilities that are coming out months in advance so we can start rewriting, and they even help us with how to go price it. So, they're saying, here's the enhancements we're doing, here's the development time, and it helps us do our proposals. So you have to engage. They have to see you're serious. You have to put in the time. But once you do, and it is not tied to how much income. As long as you're an engaged partner, I see them treating everyone pretty fairly.
Okay, that's interesting. From an IT support standpoint, I can imagine that, listen, it's all sounds great, right? Microsoft's now supposed to be responsible for patching. Microsoft's now supposed to be responsible for security. Now they're going to be responsible for updating applications, just like Office 365, but now at the Windows side. It sounds great, but every patch Microsoft puts out isn't great. I mean, we've seen many patch Tuesdays gone awry and have to revert, right?
Yeah, I just did one where it was one of the printer fixes that disabled local USB printers. You got to clear the queue and recreate it. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see where it all goes. But I know a lot of people, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concentrating ourselves on better things. And the answer is we do. Like we shouldn't have to worry about the plumbing every time. But I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like Microsoft's trying to get out of the, here's the operating system that comes with your computer business, and it's going to be turned into a subscription service, which largely, everybody heard that BMW came out in Australia and said, hey, we're going to start charging a monthly subscription for heated seats. Did you hear that one?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I mean, are you going to turn around and start charging every Mac and Windows user for the operating system they're using every month? I mean, I don't know. I get that's where they're trying to go, but I still think we got a ways to go before that's going to be widely accepted.
Buying all the farmland in the country is not cheap, George.
You're right. You're right.
We got to fund that.
Wow. Yeah. They're buying at least Bill Gates' foundation is buying a lot of farmland, but hey, he's making money no matter what. He keeps on saying he wants to get out of the top 10 on wealthiest people in the world. So he wants to donate money to, I think somebody said he's going to donate money from his personal assets to his foundation's assets, which will take him out of the top 10. Then I'm like, I don't know. That just seems like moving money inside of your own bank account. Bank account A to bank account B, but I still got it until I buy the farmland. Then maybe I don't have it, but he has it in equity then in the land, right, Keith?
Yeah, and he, he's one of the ones that says he doesn't want to leave it to his kids, which is always an abstract thought to me.
Where's it gonna go? I don't know.
I don't know. He's
Well, he did get divorced, so she had to take something.
they donated together. That last-
Really?
yes, if you read that last donation, they donated as a team.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we will on Thursday's show have much more coming out of what's actively happening in Microsoft Inspire right now. I know that there's plenty of people out there kind of, taking all the, the pieces that you care about and kind of creating a cheat sheet because, Microsoft talks about, I'm sure, all sorts of stuff, as they do. But Bruce
And by the
says,
way, I did
who was
see
the
that
worldwide-
you were a
who-
gracious host to a dinner the other night or a lunch. I saw the
Yes.
pictures online.
Yeah, listen, if you're coming into Philadelphia, and you don't take my word for it, just go back in the feed. Listen, Philadelphia is not perfect, let's be fair. But I'd like to give you a little bit of Philadelphia hospitality. I know that that's not what we're known for in the city of brotherly love all the time. But if you're coming into my backyard, let me at least take care of you, So yes, I hooked up some of the crew in town for the PAX 8. I think there's a little, regional thing that they do in all these cities. I think they call them mission briefings or something like that. So they came into town. I was like, guys, don't come into town and not let me take care of you. So that's how I'm wired. I know it's just a thing. I'm sure if I came to Pete's place, he'll take care of me. He's been trying to get me to come down there forever. Keith, I'm sure if I came over to your place in California, you try and take care of me too. It's how we do, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I always laugh because we do have Philly steak sandwiches in AT&T Stadium.
No, that's the cowboy. That's the cheesesteak the Cowboys way, and that's not real. I think
No, it's
that should
horrible.
be.
I agree with you, but I think it's funny that it's there.
I did write a letter at one point saying that that should be removed from the stadium. I don't think they responded, but hey, I digress.
You have support on that one. It's horrible.
Okay.
Too.
I mean, it's might as well go to Subway and buy a cheesesteak, and please don't do that. Don't ever do that. Ruth pops in and says, who was the world leader who recently said, in the future, you will rent everything and be happy? I believe that was the CEO of BlackRock. I don't know if that, the investment company. Not sure. I don't know which world leader said that, but I know that he definitely did. And, or at least I believe that he did. And, that's what these companies are doing. They're buying up property after property after property after property, and they're going to rent it back to you to the point where you can't own anything. You have to rent everything. I mean, I'm not quite sure we're 100% there. I'm going to, pay for this chair every month, and I'm going to pay for that light bulb every month, and soon everything's going to be a monthly. Okay. I don't think, Pete, you got to pay for, you're not gonna be able to buy your land. You're going to have to rent it every month. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, no. I'm going off grid. Solar panels, batteries, food. There's going to be a plot there for food, going to have some livestock. So when you bring the kids down, George, they come out to the farm and work.
Okay.
I'll put them in the mud boots.
That may be very generational too, because, I have a daughter that's in college and my ability to not own a house and all that is built in, I'm old, I'm 60 something, right? And that was just a way of life. This thing about sharing a car and all, that's abstract to us because you bought things, you accumulated things, and that's how we grew up. But if in the future, it may even make sense now economically, but there's a culture thing with older people. That was your nest egg. That was your asset. That was your legacy. There's more to it than economics is all I'm saying.
I understand. We'll see how it works over the next few years here on this everything as a service.
Yeah.
Well, guys, exactly on the hour. Want to thank Owen from SweetProcess. Check out his site, sweetprocess.com. Don't forget /MSP Initiative to get your free, 50 plus, templates on how to maybe organize your businesses and teams, because I'm sure we all could concentrate a little bit more on that, myself included. This session was recorded. We have it online at mspinitiative.com. Under sessions. So feel free to go back, rewind, and get back to Owen on questions that you may pop up with. And we'll see you back here again on Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Thanks everyone for joining. Catch you on the flip side.
Thanks for having me, George.
Have a good one, Owen.